What is up, everyone? Steven here for Off the Shelf Movie Night to talk to you about physical media, about DVD, about Blu-ray and 4K, the way we like to buy and own our movies and TV shows and documentaries, all that stuff. If you like this kind of conversation, you'd like to talk about movie collecting and collections and that kind of thing, you're in the right spot. Give me a subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date and be part of the conversation. That's the big thing. That's the reason this channel exists, is so we can talk about physical media and collecting. Today, though, talking about something a little different. Talking about my favorite films from last year. A few of these films are on physical now, and I actually, embarrassingly enough, have not acquired them yet, but I will. Most of them are not on physical yet. They're still in theater or summer streaming, that kind of thing. So let's talk about what my criteria for a best film of last year. Now, I'm calling this favorite films because best, that's subjective, I think. I think it's really the eye of the beholder. But these are the best to me, my favorites. Now, what is important to me, as a filmmaker myself, I tend to look at things a little differently. I do enjoy a crowd pleaser, I really do. But what's really important to me is something that innovates. Did it bring something new to the table filmically? And I'm talking about visuals. I'm talking about storytelling. It could be visuals, but storytelling's really what I'm interested in. Is it something that I would consider shareable? Rewatchable and shareable are two different things. Back to the Future, incredibly rewatchable. I watch it yearly. Irreversible, not so much, but it is a shareable film. When I'm talking to people who haven't seen it and they want to know about groundbreaking cinema, really cinema that pushes the boundaries of of good taste and what we can take emotionally as a viewer, then yeah, I share Irreversible. That's a shareable film. So I'm looking for films that are shareable. I'm looking for films that are cinematically innovative in some way. I really am interested in films that impacted me emotionally. I think because I watch so many movies, I've just become kind of jaded. So when something can really hit me, scare the shit out of me, it make me feel incredibly happy, make me feel incredibly sad. That kind of power in storytelling is what matters to me and what I love the most. And those are the things that I look for in a best of. I watch a lot of garbage. I watch a lot of, again, that's a matter of opinion, but to me, I watch a lot of garbage and I have a good time with it. I watch all the crowd pleasers. I can't talk today. I think I bit my tongue in my sleep. And that was probably because of the movie I watched last night, which was the last one I needed to watch for this list. And I enjoy them all. Crowd pleasers often make my favorite list because they were just such a good time cinematically in the theater, the theatrical experience. They were just so much fun. So my lists can often be all over the place. I'm going to try and be kind of light on spoilers for this because I want you guys to see these films if you haven't seen them. All right, number 10 is a movie called Mass. That movie features Martha Plimpton, Jason Isaacs, Ann Dowd, and Reed Birney. Now, Martha Plimpton, if you know anything about independent cinema, especially of the 90s, she was a staple. She was kind of like Winona Ryder in that way. She was just in everything there for a while. I haven't seen her in forever. So it's really great to see her in this film, and it's a crime that she's not being talked about for a Best Actress award because she is incredible in this movie. Mass is a film that's kind of daring to make because basically it is the story of two couples, two husbands and wives who suffered a tragedy from different perspectives, getting together for a conversation. The entire movie is, in pretty much the entirety of the movie, outside of a very few scant moments, is set in one room. It is these four people having a conversation. So visually, it's not arresting. There's not a lot to visually connect with in this film because it literally is a conversation. Now, what works are these four actors. Ann Dowd, you would recognize if you saw her. She's in. Well, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. She's in *Handmaid's Tale*. She's the aunt in *The Handmaid's Tale*, and she's incredible in this too. I don't want to say too much, except that this is a dialogue-driven film. It is emotionally challenging to watch. It's a beautiful film in that way. As far as a negative, and there's really no negatives for me to say about anything in my top 10 list. But the reason it's here rather than further up on the list most likely is because it often feels like a stage play. It's not just because it's only these four people and it's shot that way. There are some instances where the dialogue feels written for the stage and performed for the stage a little bit. And that's not a negative. It's just, for me, when you move something from the stage, and I don't know if this was a stage play or not. I didn't research it, to be honest with you. This is the movie I watched last night. But when you move something from that format to film, you've got to change it up a little bit. And I think there's a few times where the dialogue in this feels a little stagey. Like, not stagey like fake, stagey like for the stage. That said, I really don't want to say more about this story except to tell you these are some killer performances. Jason Isaacs is also incredible. And you see the trauma that these two families went through from two very, very different perspectives and how they deal with it. I know that's very vague, but I refuse to spoil this movie. I've seen this movie as a number one for a lot of critics out there, and it's not number one for me because of this reason, that it feels like a play, but I can understand it being your number one because it's incredible. It's incredible. I'm not going to say anything more. It's available right now on Amazon Prime, I believe. All right, number 9 is something a little more, not more, also tragic, but at the same time uplifting, and that is Roadrunner. This is the documentary about Anthony Bourdain. And this story is told through some interviews with those around him, but mostly it's told through a combination of footage from all of his different TV series endeavors and emails he sent to family. Now, this is the controversial part, and the part that I'm not quite settled with, is those emails are read in his voice. And they do this by using software technology that is able to take samples of his voice and replicate that to then read these emails. And it's pretty seamless. If you didn't know it going in, you might not even notice that they did it. You might think, how in the hell did they get Anthony Bourdain to read these emails before he passed away? They didn't. The computer did it. And it's it toys with reality a little too much for me in a documentary. That said, watching this movie and outside of the timeline from his early days as a chef to his death, the zeal for life that he had, the passion for learning from people from all walks of life from around the world, not just about food, but about culture and politics and connection. It's beautiful, and the film is beautiful. Now, a lot of it is taken from his shows like No Reservations and that kind of thing, and those shows always had wonderful videography, and that's used to full effect in this documentary. Even if you're not someone who followed Anthony Bourdain, I think you would appreciate this film, and you would start to follow him afterwards. After I saw this, I was lucky enough to see this in the theater. I went back to HBO Max and watched episodes of his previous shows. yeah, it's a tragedy how we lost him, but what he left us is pretty amazing. It's out there. You should go and see it. So you guys, I'll just say this. These first two films are pretty dark. While Roadrunner is uplifting in its spirit, it is dealing with suicide, and the film before that is also dealing in some tragedy. And there's other dark films in my list, and I think because of what we all went through together in 2020, maybe it's cathartic to get these emotions out as a creative through storytelling and filmmaking, because they're in the last year and a half, especially on the independent cinema side, there have been a lot of darker stories. And obviously some of those films were in production and in the works and everything before COVID, but it just feels like maybe it's in response to what we went through. So just be aware, you're going to have some other darker films on this list, and it just is what it is. And number 8 is Red Rocket. This is Sean Baker's latest film. His previous film was also in my top 10, and that was The Florida Project. I think The Florida Project is better than Red Rocket. I think it's a little bit more realized cinematically, but Red Rocket is outstanding. It is such a good time. It tells the story of a man, he's like a charming guy who's also maybe a criminal. He's just that kind of guy. He is an ex-porn star, and he's down on his luck. He shows up in his old stomping grounds, a small town in Texas, beat up, actually, with a very extravagant story about how that beating took place. And he convinces his ex-wife, who is still kind of his wife, to let him move back in while he kind of recovers from whatever happened to him. It's a comedy. It's a drama. It's got surreal elements. The one thing I'll say is, the thing about this movie that's fascinating to me is there's no one likable in this movie. There's not one 100% likable character whatsoever. and that part there in and of itself is kind of amusing. And this movie can go from kind of charming and funny to twisted and disturbing to watch things that happen. And it culminates in a film that's very divisive. People really like this film or they hate this film. And I love that kind of independent cinema. I love that kind of challenging, even if I fall on the side of not liking it, which has happened recently, but not with this one. Though with this one, I really liked it. I liked his storytelling method. It feels almost documentary. In fact, it's kind of becoming his jam to have a scene or two that are shot on phones, and this one does it too. The Florida Project did it. It's a really good time. It's a really good time. The lead role is played by Simon Rex, who was a porn star in real life, and the other primary role is played by Suzanne, I think. Our son, and this is her first major acting role. This is the thing about this director is he doesn't use very many seasoned actors. He likes to get people who feel of the environment that he's shooting within. They feel legitimate to whatever town or space or house or whatever he's shooting in. The negatives to that is sometimes the acting is not the best. This guy, he's more of on the lighter, like if he's the lighter side of the same coin that is Steven Soderbergh. Steven Soderbergh visually, it can do a lot more, but they both like to experiment with real people in their films. And I love that. And I really, really loved this film. I really, really loved the ending of this film also. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought in the comments, because it's something to talk about. Yeah, it's something to talk about. Can't wait to own this thing and rewatch it. All right, number 7 is a movie called The First Wave, directed by Matthew Heineman. The First Wave. Okay, this movie gutted me. The First Wave is a documentary following emergency room workers during the first 4 months of the pandemic. I have seen a lot of dark stuff in documentary. I don't think that I have seen this many people die on camera. That wasn't a war movie. And even then it was, you could be separated from it because it was archival journalism, archival footage from that war. This is stuff from an era in which we lived, less than 2 years ago. This director and his team held nothing back. They showed what these essential workers went through, what they had to do on a daily basis from March till June of 2020, and it's heartbreaking. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And the thing I love about this film too is it doesn't flood you with a bunch of title cards talking about the number of cases and all that. We don't need all that. This is a human story. This is what these people did. There's no denying it. This is what they went through. This is what they suffered, and it was hard, and they did it. And I'm just, it was astounding. This kind of run and gun shooting that you have to do, documentary style, doesn't often allow for visually arresting shots. But these guys took the time and were able to get some really pretty, really beautiful shots within this movie while they were telling the story of these doctors and nurses and also patients. It follows some patients that are in the critical care and everything that they went through as well. Be prepared, though, going in to watch this movie. It is not for the faint of heart. It is real. And nothing is held back. So, and it ends in June of 2020 when we're still in the, my cat's going crazy now, in the worst of the pandemic. So, yeah, be prepared. Very, very good movie, though. Number 6 on the list is a movie that I should not have liked. If you looked up in the dictionary movies that Steven doesn't like, it would have a picture of this movie's poster. There is no reason I should have liked Spencer. It's a story of one of the last weekend, or maybe the last weekend that Princess Diana was in her marriage. It was a weekend over Christmas and unboxing with her family. I don't care about Princess Diana. It's a tragedy what happened to her, but I'm not a follower of those stories. And it starred Kristen Stewart, an actress that I, up to this point, have just never really cared for. I know a lot of people will say she's better than what she was in Twilight. She's more than that. Whatever. That's fine. She's not someone that I cared about. This is directed by Pablo Larraín. You may have seen one of his previous films. The most popular of his previous works is called Jackie. It's a biopic about Jackie Onassis. So going into this, I just heard good things. I thought, let me give it a go, just see, And the first thing I was happy to see was that it's not a biopic. It doesn't cover her early years and how she became part of the royal family and all. It's not any of that. It is focused on that one holiday gathering and what happened after it. It covers so many things so subtly. It covers the royal family's desperate need for tradition to an extreme degree. Traditions that have been going on for hundreds of years that make no sense now, that they still carry on. the need for appearance, even if it's nothing close to reality. And you could look at her and say, oh, she had all this wealth, and, she had her kids and stuff. Why am I supposed to feel sympathetic for her? And I understand that. But at the same time, I think she had found herself in a place that regardless of the money doesn't buy happiness. And that is a saying because it is a real thing. And I think she had found herself in a place where she would have traded off all of the money for some real happiness. And this movie, in some very surreal ways, tells what the impact of that life was on her. It allows for some very visually some very stunning cinematography. Some of my favorite cinematography of the year is in Spencer. It's subtle. It's not heavy on dialogue. It is more about pace and tone and body language. And there is one scene in particular in this movie that showed me that I need to start paying more attention to Kristen Stewart. There's a scene where she's interacting with her kids. They're playing. She's playing games with them. And she is pretty stoic and, struggling with her own mental health and for the most of this movie. So she has a very specific mannerism. But in this one scene, it's one of those times where it's pure happiness for her. And she changes. And she does that while playing a character for her kids to make them laugh and that kind of thing. And I find out after seeing the movie that this whole sequence was ad-libbed. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. This is a beautiful film. Beautifully directed, beautifully acted. And I don't necessarily think you have to know that much about Princess Diana going into it to enjoy it, because you can sort of just settle into the life that she's in and that character and that kind of thing. It's funny because I was talking with my cinematographer, and all he could focus on was his feeling that, oh, she's just being bitchy and she has all this money. And I'm like, to me, money doesn't buy everything, but it's very much for him about class, and he couldn't connect beyond that with the story. And maybe you wouldn't be able to either, but I certainly did. I thought it was beautifully acted, and Kristen Stewart is going to be up for an Academy Award for her acting, and she should get it. She's phenomenal. Spencer, I think you should really see it. And that one is out on physical media right now. All right, number 5 is Saint Maud. Now, a lot of people have forgotten about this movie because technically it was supposed to come out in 2019. It played film festivals in 2019. And actually it was going to come out in 2020. Then it got pushed because of COVID. And finally, I think it came out in late 2020, early 2021 in the UK. And then it was just pulled from theaters. It never got released theatrically in the States. It finally came out summer of 2021 on physical media and on streaming. So it's directed by Rose Glass. I believe this is her directorial debut. And it stars Morfydd Clark. She plays a pious caregiver who becomes obsessed with saving the soul of one of her patients. And that's when the meat of the movie kicks in, and then you start to, it sets you in a place where, is this our main character's mental downfall, or is there something supernatural happening? This is definitely a horror film. It has some incredible visual moments and a wonderful, wonderful ending. It's beautifully acted. Has some really great cinematography. I don't want to say too much more. I don't want to get too into spoiler territory. I'm just going to say it's an A24. So if you're a fan of A24, this is one of their better films from the last couple of years, and you better see it. You got to see it. It's out on physical right now. It's very inexpensive. I think when I bought my Blu-ray, it's like $12. So, that's number 5. Number 4 is probably the most criminally underappreciated, underseen film of 2021, and that is The Last Duel. This is a Ridley Scott directed film that tells the story of the last judicial duel in the Middle Ages of France. And the duel happens because Jodie Comer's character accuses Adam Driver's character of raping her. And her husband, played by Matt Damon, wants to fight for her honor. And this film is told from 3 different perspectives. It's told from the Matt Damon character perspective, the Adam Driver character perspective, and the Jodie Comer character perspective. So you get 3 vignettes of the same story told from different perspectives. It never gets boring. The acting here is outstanding. Ben Affleck is in this film also, chewing the scenery like I've never seen him do before. He's outstanding. Damon is good. Adam Driver is really good. But Jodie Comer steals the movie. She is incredible. She's incredible in all 3 versions of the story. And this film really talks about not only whether this particular character was raped or not, but it talks about how in that era, how women were tools for manhood and for men to be able to portray their masculinity. Because you start to ask yourself, is Matt Damon, he does seem to love his wife, but is he fighting this duel for her honor or for his own masculinity? The last version of the story, all 3 are great to watch. They're all 3 fascinating, especially in retrospect after seeing them all 3. But the 3rd act of this film is incredible. And the ending is beautiful. This is Ridley Scott doing some of his best work. This is his best film since The Martian. He knows how to do these kind of big budget, medieval dramas. And don't be fooled, this movie is violent as shit. It's fucking violent. I was not anticipating the level of violence in this movie. This is some old school Ridley Scott type of stuff here. Not that he was ever that much into violence, but what he is into is doing what is necessary for the story he wants to tell. This is based on a book. That's really all I need to say about it. It's beautiful to look at. Cinematography is beautiful. The editing is immaculate. The acting is stunning. I liked Jodie Comer before this movie. I can't wait to see what she does next. She's so good in this movie. All right. Number 3 on my list is Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley. This film tells the story of a young man who gets a job in a carnival. It is a noir. There was a previous film. This one is more based on the original text. Which was a book first, and it follows his journey working up the ranks in this carnival from a handyman basically to a performer himself. And that actor is Bradley Cooper, and it's so funny because I've never had an issue with Bradley Cooper. I think he's fine, but in this movie, I forgot sometimes it was him. He wasn't doing that Bradley Cooper thing, that comedy thing. He had completely become this character. Cate Blanchett is in this movie, and once she comes on the scene, she steals the scenes. Cate Blanchett is that, her acting is incredible. She's also just like, she's a really pretty lady, don't get me wrong, she really is. But the attitude that she can exude when she wants to, it's like she's hot as fuck, okay? She's fucking hot. And it's her attitude. It's not even her look, Willem Dafoe is in this. It's a Guillermo del Toro film, so Ron Perlman has to be there. Toni Collette is doing some of my favorite work from her in this film. I didn't like her in Knives Out. So she redeemed herself here. She's phenomenal. Rooney Mara is someone who I didn't have any care about one way or the other. Didn't like her as an actress. Didn't not like her. Just didn't care. She's really good in this also. And it's great to see Mary Steenburgen. I didn't even know going in that she was in this film. She's great. Really great to see her in this film. So, yeah, Nightmare Alley, it feels like you're going inside Guillermo del Toro's head. If you've seen his other films, this one is right there with Pan's Labyrinth in its twisted look and feel, its noir styling. This world is so realized. There's so many practical sets and props and locations. You almost could smell the nastiness of this carnival where people didn't shower, and probably these old set pieces and, circus freak type of things. Everything was muddy and dirty and just engrossing to look at and experience. This is a long movie. It is an epic story, much bigger than I anticipated, and my third favorite film of the year. It's phenomenal. This one is also criminally underwatched. Came out around the same time as Spider-Man, so it was kind of doomed. All right, number 2 is something a little smaller. I was lucky enough to see this in my art house cinema, and that is Benedetta. So it's directed by Paul Verhoeven. If you don't know who that is, he famously did RoboCop. He did Total Recall. But more fitting for this particular thing is he did Basic Instinct. He also did Showgirls. So Benedetta tells the story of I'm going to read this to you. A 17th century nun in Italy suffers from disturbing religious and erotic visions. She is, assisted by a companion, and the relationship between the two women develops into a romantic love. So it becomes a thing within her convent. Is she really being visited by God? Is she faking? At the same time, she's having sex, which is something they don't do. So this movie is, again, another movie that is visually beautiful. It has real sets and locations and wonderful costumes and that kind of thing, and it's beautifully acted. I'll try and tell you her name. The lead actress in particular, Virginie Efira, Efira. You can tell me how to pronounce that. Is the lead actress in this. So this movie has a lot of sort of religious commentary in it. It asks a lot of questions in its subtext about religion. It has a lot of things to say. If you're easily offended by that, you may want to skip this movie, because it's funny. If you look at the reviews on Google, it's either 5 out of 5 or 0 out of 5. And, inevitably the 0 out of 5 movies just call it blasphemous. I love that. I'm not going to lie. That was what drew me into the movie to begin with, because there's nothing in this world that doesn't deserve to be challenged. I'm sorry. There's no line that I draw when it comes to that. And this movie is definitely challenging religious norms. And it does so with some fucking hot sex scenes in the first half, and then some really a couple of really hard to watch scenes in the second half. So it makes a little bit of a switch, but it does all that with a thoughtful social commentary, and that's as it tells the story of this woman who is being visited by God. That's really all I want to say about it. It's challenging. It's beautiful. It's well acted. It's beautifully directed. This is Paul Verhoeven. Like, I haven't seen him in 30 years probably. I don't know. This movie came out of nowhere. It's very good though. And again, it's one of those movies that, it's a shareable film. I'll end up having this on my shelf, and then I'll talk about it with other film fans that I know, and we'll end up watching it here in my theater space. Okay, so my number one film of 2021 is, without a doubt, with no hesitancy in my heart whatsoever, is Titane. This movie, I keep going back to it because of its bizarre fucking story. Its incredible visuals. It's wonderful pacing and its ridiculous characters. It's almost unexplainable. If you go and look up if you go to IMDb or you go to Rotten Tomatoes and you look up the description of what the story is about, it defines what Titane is, which is a metal, basically, that is often used in surgical procedures because it works well in the body. And that does have impact on what the story is about. This story is really bizarre. I don't know how to explain to you what it is. I sit here and I think about it. I'm like, what the fuck was this movie? I saw it in the theater and I was so happy to get to see it because I haven't had an experience like it before. It's experimental, but not so experimental that you can't connect with the story and follow it through. It's science fiction, it's drama, it's horror, it's comedy, but not comedy. There's moments that will make you laugh, but you'll regret the moment you laugh. I'm not doing this story justice because I don't want to spoil too much of it, but at the same time, there's really not a clear definition of what the movie is about. It's my number one because I've never seen anything like it. It's a fucking roller coaster ride like I've never been on before. I like this director's previous film. It was in my top 10 the year it came out. Also, it's called Raw. So I had a lot of anticipation for this one. It made people throw up at the Cannes Film Festival. It won an award at Cannes. I don't remember which award it won, but maybe it was screenplay. I'm not sure. It may have been the best of the festival now. I can't remember. It did really well. I know that. And then when I saw it, I'm like, how did that happen? How is this? I love it. It deserves it, but it's shocking that it got recognized because it is very outlandish, very violent, very bizarre. Yeah, I fucking loved this film. It's undescribable. I challenge you as a physical media fan to watch this film and let me know in the comments what you thought of it, because it's something so different. It's like, I don't have the words to describe it. It's beautifully directed. It was also written by I'll try and tell you her name here, Julia Ducournau. I don't know. I believe that. Anyway, it has my favorite oneer of the year. So if you don't know what a oneer is a single shot. The king of the oneer is gotta be Martin Scorsese. That opening oneer for Goodfellas that just goes on and on and on, and it travels through the club and doesn't cut. It's my favorite oneer of all time. But this one, the opening oneer of this film is my favorite of the year for sure, and probably my favorite of the last few years. Yeah, you're just gonna see some bizarre shit. Get ready. And I know I'm cursing a lot during this one, but it deserves it. Get ready for some batshit craziness and enjoy it and settle in for the ride. And I feel bad for you that you're watching it at home and you didn't see it in the theater the way I did with a crowd, because, man, it's something special. I can't talk any more about it. I really can't, because I don't want to spoil it. And I know a lot of you guys haven't seen it. So that's my top 10 list. Real quick, I'll just run back down them for you. Number 10 was Mass. Number 9 is Roadrunner. Number 8 is Red Rocket. Number 7 is The First Wave. Number 6 is Spencer. Number 5 is Saint Maud. Number 4 is The Last Duel. Number 3 was Nightmare Alley. Number 2 is Benedetta. And number 1 was Titan. Now, the hot take from this is that I didn't bother to include Spider-Man Far From Home, or No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home, or Dune. 2 movies that I had a great time with. Had a great time with both of those movies. They're not on the list because I'll tell you really quickly, they are honorable mentions. Dune is not on the list because it's not a complete thought. And I think that's a failure of filmmaking. I will like Dune better probably after the second one comes out and we get a beginning, middle, and end. It's okay to have sequels, but give me a complete story. Give me a complete arc. And I don't feel that I got that in Dune. There's a lot of other really positive things I could say about Dune. It's beautiful. The practical effects are beautiful. It's well directed. I just wish it would have been a complete thought. The Spider-Man movie, also wonderful. Really great time. The thing that it did that was phenomenal was it made the Andrew Garfield films matter. It gave them weight. It gave that character closure that he deserved. But it's also, in a lot of ways, another Marvel film. It feels of that formula, really looks of that formula. It doesn't have any substance or depth. It's all CG. I enjoy the movie, but it doesn't bring anything new to the table. You know, it's just more of the same cotton candy. And that's fine. I had a great time with it. But it's not one that I'll be talking about 10 years from now. All of these films on my list, I could see myself easily talking about 10 years from now. So anyway, that's my top 10. Let me know in the comments, what is your top 10? Let's talk about the best films of last year, and let's talk about what we're anticipating for this year. Till next we meet. Pull something cool off the shelf, share it with your friends and family, and remind them why physical media is the best way to watch films and TV at home. I will see you on the next one.